Okay, Shalom Akim, Kahala Imna Yahawah Hashem Yahushua Hashem Rakah Kodash, double honors to the groups and apostles and elder bishops of Great Millstone, and Thadi for the strength in order to make this video, and the answers are that you find it edifying and exhorting. Once again, edifying meaning to build up, as well as exhorts means to encourage. So yeah, this will be really a quick video. I would say that typically you'll see how the spirit goes, but the intention really is just to make a brief point on Jake, man. Mainly on the northern tribes, because I was getting into this again. I decided, alright, let me reread chapter 1 so that I can get in the groove of getting into the little video series. Because I said I did part 1 some time ago, but I decided, alright, let me start to get a regular upload schedule for the Latin American history. So the same way I got through the Native American history, which was Gad and Reuben, I'll do the same thing for the rest of the northern tribes too, or whichever ones that are mentioned within the book. So there was something that I wanted to recap again, or just one part to focus on, and I'm gonna get some precepts too, because here's why they call it Latin America, because really it was the Spaniards, the Portuguese, as well as the French as well, which they call them Romance languages, because they were rooted in they came from Latin, so hence why again Spaniards, Portuguese, and French invading those countries where Jake was, the northern tribe was residing in. The thing is, that's why right now certain countries speak the languages of their colonizers. Example, Brazil, which is what I was going to speak on today, for this video. And Brazil, obviously they speak Portuguese, Brazilian Portuguese, as well as because of course the Portuguese. But I'm gonna get into it just briefly, as well as what's the other one too? Not Mexico. Was it? Is that pre-Columbian? But anyways, let me since I got the book, I might as well read it, innit? I think it was pre-Columbian. Actually, no, it was part of the place where Christopher Columbus, which his name alone, there's history going behind that guy, but that's a whole other video in itself. So I'm gonna just call him simply, just for understanding, Christopher Columbus, of whom went to Dominican Republic. But in the Dominican Republic, before he even got there, the Tainos, I keep speaking, I might as well just read it, just to get the point across. But the Tainos, which are known as the, what do they call them? I believe that they're the pre-Columbian tribe over there. Let me just get the part of the book and then I'll get into it. But yeah, the reason why, I'm making this video is just to show that, Most High really made us lose our ways as Israelites. That's why Yahawah named the video along the lines of northern tribe was strong, but, were ignorant. Because of course they worship idols and they lost their way, man. Let's see, hold on. I was mentioning multiple things, but I just want to keep it simple. So again, this is on page 8. I believe this is chapter 1. Let's read this. Alright, so as it pertains to Christopher Columbus, his trip was really interrupted by an unknown landmass in the Caribbean. So initially, he was trying to find India, so that he can get profits from, spices, or pretty much get some gain from India, as he's been told. But on his journey to find India, he thought he found India, but it was actually the Americas that he found. So yeah, so Columbus and his crew left Spain. Yeah, Columbus and his crew hold on. Let me read that again. As it pertains to Christopher Columbus, his trip was rudely interrupted by an unknown landmass in the Caribbean. Columbus and his crew left Spain in August of 1492 and landed somewhere in the Bahamas that October. There, they were met by the previously pre-Columbian people called the Taino, which I mentioned before. As you might already know, Columbus believed that he landed in some part of India, so he famously called the locals Indians. All of the indigenous peoples of the Americas would be referred to as Indians, even though they obviously were not from India. So the Tainos, as I said, were the pre-Columbian people. I won't read the whole thing, but just to make a few points before I then bring out these scriptures as well, is that the Tainos, the pre-Columbian people, again, they were part of the Caribbean islands, in the Bahamas, and they then introduced Christopher Columbus to the landmass of which has more gold, which I believe was it did mention Dominican Republic here, Hispaniola. Let me read this as well. Let's see. Because I don't want to get too deep because I've already done the part 1, so let's see. Alright, let me start from here. So after stopping in Cuba, so between pages 8 and 9, in case you want to get the book, it's called History of Latin America by Captivating History. It's on Amazon if you want to order it. Get you some knowledge to grasp, about our people, man. The northern tribe, which again is the Latin American tribes. So the Tainos, you can see them as, before, again, pre-Columbia, which is part of the tribes too. Alright, let's see. Alright, not there. Alright, so after stopping in Cuba, Columbus then steered his ship south and ended up in Haiti, and then at what we now call the Dominican Republic. Eventually he made his way to Hispaniola. During the course of his expedition, one of his 3 ships, the Santa Maria, became inoperable and was stuck on shore. The ship had to be abandoned, but Columbus continued his exploration with his remaining 2 craft. In Hispaniola, he was pleased to find gold, which of course the Spaniards were seeking gold as well. Now it says the Taino, again a pre-Columbian people, what Jake called themselves, kind of like the Aztecs as well. They actually call themselves Mexicas, hence which is where the name Mexico comes from. Mexicas was what the Aztecs, which again the Mexicans, Issachar, that tribe, that's where the name Mexico came from. So that's just a little fact there. And it's continuing on. It says, in Hispaniola, he was pleased to find gold. The Taino realized that Columbus had found something he liked and assured him they could get him more gold further inland. So anyways, gold was an incentive, and because of that gold as well, that made him to become a tyrant. But anyways, it's a lot, because I was going, that's like a mini recap. But I really want to get to this point here. But prior to getting to this point, I really want to just focus on the Tupi Namba tribe. Because the Tupi tribe are, what's it called again? Is it the modern day Peruvians? No, not Peruvians. Oh, Brazilians, yeah. Formerly, before they were called Brazilians, they were known as the Tupi tribe, which is short for Tupi Namba tribe. Prior to the Portuguese then coming through and of course making settlements there over there in Brazil. The reason why even the name Brazil because of, I think in Portuguese, they mentioned it in the book here, they called, it was abundant in the resource called Poor Brazil, or PAU Brazil. Probably not even saying it right. But Poor Brazil, PAU, and then hyphen Brazil, because that meant red dyewood. So red and then DYEWOOD in terms of the resources that they were abundant in. Hence why they called it Brazil. So that's some history there. But anyways, let me get this. I'll warm up with the scriptures as well, man. Right. I know I jump from place to place, but that as the book goes, it's the history of Latin America. So certain things are going to be focused on. Like Yaratazar, this is just like should be a brief video prior to me doing the actual part 2 to the series. It's like a recap for me, because there's something that got my attention when it came to the Brazilian tribe. I believe the tribe of Asha. But again, they were formerly called, the Tupi Namba tribe, or Tupi for short. Let's see, Deuteronomy 28. Deuteronomy 28 and verse. Let me start from this. So this is Deuteronomy 28 and verse 28. The Lord Yahawah shall smite thee with madness and blindness and astonishment of hearts. Now the key word here is, well, the two key words are madness and blindness. Because obviously after again they had to flee the land from the Assyrian captivity, which I believe I did mention it in the Gad and Reuben series, but also probably in the Latin American one. But the point is, 2 Kings 17, with that Assyrian captivity, the northern tribes had to flee. So of course from there they then had to go to other lands, and then the Most High, of course according to his will, Jake bugged out. We forgot the names Yahawah, we forgot the names Yahawah, and from there all sorts of degeneracy and idol worship is what the Most High gave us up to because of our disobedience. Now, the reason why I read that is because of the Tupi tribe here is a testament to that point, or it supports that point. Now just hold on. Alright, I'll start from here. Page 13 from the book here. Still chapter 1. So yeah, in the latter paragraph, it says, in 1500, another Portuguese explorer, Pedro Álvares Cabral, was attempting to make use of this same current, when he inadvertently went a little too far. That current is talking about the sea current, because Portuguese were also trying to find India as well. So they thought that, okay, let's use the current to try and get around Africa and then get to India. But the current, let me continue on, the current made them go too far west, which was the Most High's will anyways, because part of the curses, a nation of which we shall not know, will overtake us. Again, that's roughly paraphrasing that from Deuteronomy 28. So let me continue. It says, in 1500, another Portuguese explorer, Pedro Álvares Cabral, was attempting to make use of this same current when he inadvertently went a little too far west. To his shock, he sighted the shoreline of some unknown coast and made landfall. That unknown coast was part of modern-day Brazil. Pedro had gone so far west of Africa that he had accidentally traveled all the way to South America. In this land, which was completely mysterious and unknown to these Portuguese explorers, they found an abundance of red dyewood. in Portuguese, it is commonly referred to as Por Brazil. So I don't know if I could zoom into that word, but hold on, let me see if I can get Por Brazil right there. You know, it talks about red dyewood as well. Right there, red dyewood, Por Brazil. So of course that's where Brazil got their name from the Portuguese. So it says known as Brazil wood. It was from this type of wood that the country we now know as Brazil would ultimately get its name. So that's just some history there based on that. I want to get to another point. Just want to keep it concise here. Actually, no, I'll read this as well. So it says, it did not take long for Pedro and company to realize that this land was already inhabited. The first encounters with the locals were recorded in the ship's annals by one Pero Vaz de Caminha, which is another Portuguese explorer. Pero spoke of the locals, saying, they seemed to me to be people of such innocence that if we could understand them and they us, they will soon become Christians. You see, so you know that the religion itself, of course, Jake lost their knowledge of the scriptures, you know, because it was for Jake, you know, not for these heathens. But of course, you know, over time, you know, Christianity developed, but not to really serve Yahawah Shem Yahushua. That's why the names were not preached, you know, in this time, because Jake was still going through those curses hardcore. Now it says they will soon become Christians, which again really is fake Christians, because they're not followers of Yahushua. Anyway, so because they do not seem to have or understand any form of religion, for it is certain that this people is sick, good, and of pure simplicity. And of course simplicity going into stupid. You know, it's like old English when a person said, I remember in the House of David series on Amazon Prime, I believe season 1, Goliath said to David, are ye simple? You know, so that means are you stupid, in other words. So it says, for it's certain that this people is sick, good, and of pure simplicity, and there can easily be stamped upon them whatever belief we wish to give them. So of course the Portuguese saw them as easy people, saw, you know, northern tribe as easy people to manipulate. Right, so let's get this here. Actually, no, let me get a precept on that as well, because that's how Esau rolls, man. Let's see if we can get it from here as well. Habakkuk 2 and 5 probably. Should be Habakkuk 2 and 5. And then the one about, you know, neither keepeth at home. Esau, Edomites among, you know, the Portuguese, Edomites among the Spaniards and the French as well. Of course, they were there in order to fulfill the word of Yahawah B'Shem Yahushua. Because of our disobedience to Deuteronomy 28, of course, they were sent in order to fulfill that. Alright, just bear with me. Hold on. Just hold on. Let me just search up. Right, this is Habakkuk chapter 2 and verse 5. Yea, also because he transgresseth by wine, he is a proud man, which really refers to Esau, Edom, neither keepeth at home, considering the fact that, of course, he's always going out to, other lands, to dominate them, and take them for himself. Of course, he's done that to us, and he's also doing that right now, considering the US and Iran situation that's going on. And it says he is a proud man, neither keepeth at home, who enlargeth his desire as hell, and is as death, and cannot be satisfied, but gathereth unto him all nations, and heapeth unto him all people. So of course Esau's gonna go out there and get what he wants, man. Again, as it says within the scriptures, he cometh but to steal and to kill and to destroy. Hence why with the Tainos, the pre-Columbian people, which Christopher Columbus found would have been his second voyage. Yeah, I believe the first one was 1492, as I mentioned before. He discovered gold, in the land of the Dominican Republic. And of course, he was pleased so that he can send that back, to the royal family. I believe it was what's her name, Queen Isabella. It did mention that. But besides the point, though, Esau does go out there, to appease his greed. Just that's what that precept means in Habakkuk 2 and verse 5. It also links to this one here, considering the Portuguese, they wanted to push Christianity on, which really was the false way of it, on what's it called, on the Brazilians, which again they were called the Tupi tribe, or the Tupi number tribe. Let's see, so Revelation 17, and I'll just get to the point. Verse 2, it says, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, the governments, the rulers, so-called prime ministers in this modern day sense. Those are the kings of the earth, have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with wine of her fornication. That wine of her fornication can be likened as the philosophies and the influence of which Esau has, to indoctrinate, these other nations as well. And of course, that was done unto Jake too. Hence why they bugged out even more when the Portuguese, the French, and the Spanish, came to invade the Latin Americans, so aka the Northern Kingdom, when they were there in the islands. Again, in Central and South America. I believe those are two dominant regions, and Mexico as well. Right, so that's that precept there. Let me continue reading. I'm not trying to make this too long either, because it's just a recap. Or just to extract a certain point on the Tupi tribe. Right, so that's them. Now let me skip to this, page 14 and a latter paragraph. On to page 15. So it says, at any rate, the chronicler, which a chronicler is a person who records history. It's like a person who, it's like let's say in World War One or World War Two, it's like a photographer that goes to war and then takes these war photos. That will be referred to as a chronicler, who records these events, chronologically as well, to say, okay, this happened here, this happened there. And they're like witnesses who observe these things, and then they record it. So at any rate, the chronicler was impressed with the kind and hospitable nature of the inhabitants, and that's Jake's nature, to be compassionate. Unfortunately, it was to Esau, Edom. So they didn't benefit from that. So at any rate, the chronicler was impressed with the kind and hospitable nature of the inhabitants, who were most likely members of the Tupi Namba tribe, also called the Tupi people. The Tupi are said to have lived all along the coast of the modern-day Brazil and numbered around 1 million. You know, Jake is a fruitful people. Of course, we know that because that's why Pharaoh as well initially tried to eliminate Jake, because he was frustrated with how big they were becoming. He was scared that Jake would then turn against them in a war. And that's the new Pharaoh that didn't know Joseph. And to refer to that, or to back that up, it's Exodus 1. Literally the first chapter talks on this. I'll just get to the point, and I'll get to that. I'll get back to reading. Sometimes I say these videos are going to be short, and then I just get deeper into them for some reason. But that's how Yahawah works. As I say, quench not the spirit. Alright, so Exodus 1 and verse... I'll start from verse 8. Exodus 1 and verse 8. Now there arose up a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph. And he said unto his people, Behold, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we. You see, this is Pharaoh reasoning in his thoughts. So mightier than we. Come on, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply, and it come to pass that when there falleth out any war, they join also unto our enemies and fight against us. So get them up out of the land. You see, so Pharaoh was scared that Israel will multiply to the point where it's like, hey man, if these lot turned against us, we're finished. That's how he was reasoning. So it's the same way that why did I even mention that, man? Hold on. Oh yeah, because of the 1 million. Yeah, it says the Tupi are said to have, which again, the Tupi are the Brazilians, what they called themselves formerly before they were Brazilians. The Tupi are said to have lived all along the coast of modern-day Brazil and numbered around 1 million. At first glance, the Tupi did not seem very aggressive. That's Jake. Pharaoh also expressed amazement at the fact that they had no inhibition as it pertains to going without clothes. Hence the bugged out state of Jake. That's really what gave me the idea to do this video. So it says, as the chronicler puts it, they go around naked without any covering at all. They worry no more about showing their private parts than their faces. So the Most High practically put us in a very humiliated state and in our ignorance. Yahawah probably named the video, where Northern Tribe was strong, but we're ignorant. That's just the Northern Tribe as well, man. Southern tribes still had to go through their humiliation too. All the tribes had to go through humiliation some way, somehow. During the time where our colonizers had to collect us, and anyway, so all the different slave trades that was going on during this time. Let's see. But yeah, that was the point. It says they go around naked without any covering at all. They worry no more about showing their private parts than their faces. Again, Hosea 4 and 6. My people are destroyed because of their lack of knowledge. Mosai removed his name. He removed Yahawah's name. If you ain't got the names Yahawah, Yahawah, how then are you going to have a sound mind? That's really it. So he made us really bug out, man. And then curses hit hard. So it says there also, for the Portuguese, the locals seem to be in some sort of innocent or entirely unassuming state, akin to Adam and Eve, free, which of course, that's a whole breakdown in itself. But, the point is they thought that, okay, based on the worldly interpretation, that, they were naked, walking around naked, which, the Tupi tribe, they were, because, Mosai put them in that position. The tribe of, the Brazilians. So it says here, actually, let me check something quick. So, okay. So just double checking that the Brazilians are Asherites, and they are. So anyways, continuing on, they thought that they were, Portuguese thought that pertaining to the Adam and Eve, the worldly version of it, that they look like that, which again the Most High bugged them out. But to the point, it says, even so, it said it was clear that the locals posed no threat. Even so, the Tupi apparently did have a dark side. So let me read it. It has been said that when warfare did happen to break out between tribes, so pretty much amongst the northern tribes, so let's say within the Tupi tribe, amongst themselves or amongst the different tribes within that region of land in Brazil, this is what happened. So it says, when warfare did happen to break out between the tribes, any prisoners of war were subjected to ritual cannibalism. Even today, there are some Tupi tribes who make it a part of their cultural practice to ritually eat parts of deceased loved ones, apparently as a means of honoring the dead. So again, Mosai really put curses on us. I believe Ezekiel also talks about us. Father shall eat his children or something. Ezekiel 3 or 5. Let's see if I can get. If it ain't 3, then it might be chapter 5. Hold on. Nah, it's probably chapter 5 then. Just bear with me, Akim Salakia. I know it says it. Okay, I'll go ahead. I thought you shy. So, Ezekiel 5, starting from verse 9, it says, and I will do in thee that which I have not done. Yes, this is the Most High speaking here. And whereunto I will not do any more the like, because of all thine abominations. Therefore, the fathers shall eat the sons in the midst of thee, and the sons shall eat their fathers, and I will execute judgments in thee, and the whole remnant of thee I will scatter into all the winds. And he did that with the northern tribe as well. He did that with all the tribes. To them, the Caribbean islands and the Latin American countries as well. And we just talked on that as well. In terms of the Syrian captivity, and then from there, Mosai really bugged out Jake, man. And it was our punishment, rightfully so, because he said, for all thine abominations. I'll read it in the NLT as well. Ezekiel 5 and 9, and then verse 10 as well. Because of your detestable idols, I will punish you like I have never punished anyone before or ever will again. Parents will eat their own children, and children will eat their parents. I will punish you and scatter to the winds the few who survive. So of course, really, the scriptures support what mindset that Jake was on. The Tupi tribe, aka the Brazilians, the tribe of Asher. That's just me putting a magnifying glass on them. Every other tribe, they've had their history as well. And Yahawah, in due time, I'll be getting into it. But first, I'll be focusing on the Latin American tribe, man. So anyways, Yahawah, that's really the point, man. They were bugged out walking around naked. And that was because that's a curse that was placed upon us, by Yahawah, by Hashem Yahushua, man. That was one of the curses, because it says, it will strike us with madness, blindness, It doesn't mean literally. Well, yes, there's literal judgment of blindness, but there's also spiritual blindness, where he removed our names. He removed their names from us, from our tongues, where we couldn't worship him anymore. We couldn't have that spiritual protection anymore. But now that we're returned onto him, that's why it says, seek him 10 times more. So again, the point was just to focus on, the Latin tribes, man, especially with the Portuguese going to the Brazilians. Yaratazar, Salakia, if it felt as though, I was jumping around. That's just me warming up my brain. But yeah, Yaratazar, you learned some facts. And of course, because, just to briefly summarize as well, you got the Tainos, which are the pre-Columbian people. They were residing in the area of the Caribbean, the Bahamas. Christopher Columbus went there 1492, on his first voyage. And of course, from there, that's how Jake was, he's a compassionate people. They even introduced Christopher Columbus to gold, in the land of the Dominican Republic. Jake was just operating in ignorance, man. But as the scripture says in Ecclesiasticus 12 verse 10, never trust thine enemy. That's just simply putting it. But of course they weren't in that mindset. So anyways, I'll leave it at that. Yaratazar, I'm actually gonna do the part 2. Eventually Yaratazar could be this week. Well, this upcoming week, I should say, Yaratazar. Because, I got to read it, and then not just read it, but, do some extra research as well. When Yaratazar, as the knowledge is then aligned, when I got the precepts, then I do the video as well. But this one's like a little recap as well. So again, Yaratazar, you learned something. Paul, from the name Paul Brazil, referring to red dyewood, because Brazil had an abundance. That's how the name Brazil came into place. The Aztecs, they call themselves Mexicas, which again, where the name Mexico came from Mexicas, which is the Aztecs, so-called, it's the tribe of Issachar, so. But Yaratazar, even in the part 2, I'm going to focus more on the Aztecs and the Inca tribe as well, which are part of these are like the names before, so that the labels before, the Latin American labels that, they got right now, like Brazil, Colombia, Uruguay, and all the Latin American countries. But anyways, Yaratazar, part 2. So, Shalom, Yahawah Shema Shabrakatha. Call Halaim La Yahawah Shema Shabrakatha production, double on Instagram, apostles and elder bishops, Great Millstone. And yeah, Shalom.